Why did you like it as an instrument?
I didn't. Not particularly. It was obviously one that, you know, if you were on the guard, you were the trumpet player on the guard, then you were required to play all the calls during the day, reveille, last post, and all the calls in between, the meal calls.
How many calls could you be expected to do? Because in 57, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people from later on, but in 57, I would imagine a lot more communication was being done through the bugle or through the trumpet.
I think it's the same thing that happens nowadays. I don't think that's changed to a great extent at all. I mean, you start the day off with reveille, then you'd have a breakfast call, parade call, sick call, and then a meal call at lunchtime, a tea time call, a last post in the evening. There were quite a few calls to be made, and that's still happening nowadays.
And you just play in all weather, and did you have much abuse for doing it, waking people up and stuff?
Yeah, probably. It was quite, they're quite loud instruments. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think they appreciate it very much, but the noise.
Now, something else is quite obvious from Kneller is obviously it's right in the middle of Witton. It's very much a sort of a community military establishment. What do you remember of playing and being outside of the gates back then?
I think it was very important to have a good community role with the band. I mean, the band's probably the only part of the British Army that are seen by the public. They don't normally go onto the ranges and see the tanks manoeuvring. So the military band is the only one, the only part of the army that the general public see, and what they're paying their taxes for. So I think it's very important to portray the image, a good image for the army.
And how much did you feel that were you aware of that sentiment even as a, when you first arrived, when you'd be out playing in the community in Witton, or was that not the case at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. We were definitely aware of it because at that time National Service was still in place, and a lot of the general public had either had someone in the family that served as a national serviceman or was still serving, because that didn't finish till 1960.
And so what do you remember, what events do you remember going out into Witton to do?
Well, we obviously did a lot of community events, and with the cavalry regiment you tend to be stationed in Germany quite a lot, so you did a lot for the German public, to foster good relations. And the band used to enjoy doing that. Yeah.
How did you feel when you left here after that first 2 years? What was the sentiment for you?
When I left, sorry?
When you left Kneller Hall after your first 2 years here as a student bandsman.
My very first posting after a student bandmaster's course was to Hong Kong.
No, did you feel your musical ability had improved as a pupil, and were you looking forward to leaving, or were you enjoying the sort of the educational side of your musical?
Yeah. Well, I was certainly looking forward to joining my parent regiment, and I felt much more confident after having been to Kneller Hall that I was able to serve them well.
Okay, so do you remember your first tour with the regiment after you went back?
After what, sorry?
After you went back as a pupil.
I joined them in Germany. They were in a post called Fallingbostel, which is it's a garrison town in Germany. So I joined them there, and we were constantly on the move. We were constantly doing things. We also had duties to perform for the battalion, for the regiment as well. And so the band was in quite good shape then, and I think we were 35 strong at that time. And they performed lots of public relations engagements for the local population.
Did you know what you were doing when you were out performing for the locals? Did you sort of get a sense of why you were there, or was it just part of your day?
Yeah, quite often they used to get the local news and hear about a tank driving into a German's house, going through the village, and then they would send the band in then to improve the public relations again, to sort of put things right, and that was one of the many roles that the bands had.
Oh, so you sort of realised that you were sort of like a hearts and mind kind of exercise.
It was very much a public relations role that the bands have, yeah.
So between 59 and 69, that's quite a long time.
Yes.
Can you give me a sort of a bit of an overview of some of the events that you did and where you might have travelled, and any standout memories for you?
Well, most of the engagements we did between 59 or 60 when I joined the band and 69 were mainly in Germany, apart from an 18-month trip back to Tibworth. But all the other postings were in Germany. We went to 3 or 4 different places, mainly garrison towns. And while we were there, our job was to foster good relations with the German public. We took part in the Berlin tattoo a number of times, and a number of other tattoos and parades, Queen's birthday parades. But most of our engagements were engagements just for the band, performing concerts for the local population.
Is this also, you're marching, these are a lot of marching stuff as well as
Yes.
as orchestral, yeah, okay. And did you feel, when you were back there, did you feel that your musical ability was improving to such a degree that you felt the need to become a bandmaster, or was it put on you that you might be the right person for it?
I must admit that in 1959, I didn't think about coming back as a bandmaster. It wasn't until 5 or 6 years after I had got back to the band that I gave it some thought, and I thought, well, perhaps it was the course to take. And I was advised to by the bandmaster at the time.
And what was it like coming back then, and having seen the sort of treatment that the bandmasters had?
It was quite frightening, really, because I came back in 1969. We were a big class then. At that particular point in time, I think there was a shortage of bandmasters, or of student bandmasters at the school here, ready to go out. And so they had a large class. I was a member of I think 23-man class. Some of them obviously from Commonwealth countries.
Yeah, you've got a list.
Yeah, I have a list of those that were in my class. There was one from Ghana, Ceylon, Malawi, Nigeria, Jamaica, Trinidad, Tanzania, Singapore. So we had quite a few from the Commonwealth. They were all very good musicians who were qualified, obviously, and some of them being trained by the British, in fact, in their own countries.
They could cope, the standard was good?
Yes, they did, yeah, and then some of them were very, very good musicians.
You touched on it on your notes here, but they were sort of being paid by their governments to come here.
I'm not sure exactly how the financial side of it worked out, but I do believe that the governments sponsored them to come to Kneller Hall, and obviously there was a question of the cost, I suppose, which for the tutorial which was given here.
So your school bandmaster then was Trevor Sharp, is that right?
As a pupil, when I came in '59.
How tough did you find the bandmaster class then?
I found it quite hard, actually. I enjoyed it, but it was a hard work. I mean, we were required as students to do our homework every week, and despite the fact that you may go out and do a concert on a Friday or Saturday, Sunday night, but whatever time you got back, you still had to do the homework. And there's quite often we would do a concert in some place like Folkestone, getting back here to Kneller Hall at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and still have to produce the homework for 8 o'clock that morning, if it hadn't been finished, of course. So we kept up the candles burning, yeah.
And what was the camaraderie like then?
It was very good. I mean, we were a close-knit class, as they all were. And they were encouraged to be as well. We all looked after each other, which I think was very important.
And were there any big events then in those few years when you were back here? I'm just trying to think what was going on in 69, 70. I mean, obviously the moon landing, but that was 68, I think. Are there any standout memories?
There was the investiture of Prince Charles in Carnarvon. We went up there with the trumpets and Carnarvon Castle. That was one of the early engagements we did while I was at Kneller Hall. The very first day I got here with my class, I was one of the trumpeters at the Eisenhower Memorial Service at St. Paul's. So we'd only been here less than 24 hours, and I was wearing the uniform, which I had to renew, a Kneller Hall uniform, and go out with the team of fanfare trumpeters to play at the memorial service at St. Paul's.
Would that be the Golden Eight?
Yes.